Hey everyone, I'm here today with some information regarding a pageant survey that was sent out several months ago. What does the pageant world think about all these different topics? Let's find out. More than 300 pageant people or pageant participants across the United States responded to this survey. And it was a general survey that we just did, kind of like a State of the Union informational survey to kind of find out, like, what are people thinking? What's the pulse? What do they feel about all these topics? And so we have your answers today, at least in part one. This is part one. We will have a part two. So hopefully you'll stay tuned in for part two as well. But part one, we're going to talk about what is the most important thing when selecting a pageant. So out of over 300 respondents, it's really interesting to me that the number one thing with 64.67% was the reputation of the pageant and the director as being fair and ethical. So 64.67% of you responded. That was the number one thing you look for. That's the most important thing for you when selecting a pageant. And I have to say, I agree with that. I think that's super, super important. Number two, and mind you, this was not like going from 64% to 50%. We're going from 64% to 9%. So this is a huge drop. 9% of you said friendliness at the pageant, the friendly environment at the pageant, was the second most important thing to you when selecting what pageant you are going to do next. So again, the number one thing, reputation of the pageant director and reputation of the system as being fair and ethical. Along those same lines, what makes pageant people decide against competing at a pageant? I feel like we should be on that game where they go, survey says, but that's not this show. All right, I digress. We're going to continue. What makes you decide against competing in a pageant? So the percentages here were not as high and low as they were for the first question. So the first thing people said, 34.07 of you, or yes, 34.07 said the director or system has a bad reputation. That was the number one thing that makes people decide against competing at a pageant. Number two thing, coming in at 33.75%, is bad previous experiences or bad word of mouth reports from others. Yeah, I think this is, again, right on the money. Right on the money is what I thought was going to be. This is not a surprise to me. I think that reputation is pretty much everything, make or break in this industry. And it's not surprising to see that pageant people view that as the number one thing that they look for when deciding where to compete next. All right, so this next question I feel is a hot topic question, and I was actually really, really surprised at the answer. So the question is, what is your stance on crown chasing? And so before I give you the results on this one, I just want to give a little background. I personally think crown chasing, basically having more than one title at a time, is not correct. It's not fair for either systems that the girl is trying to represent. But given the way things have progressed in this industry, we see so much of that happening. We see girls not even finishing their first title to go jump on a second one or a third one or a fourth one. In some cases, we have seen that. So this was kind of surprising to me that 67% of those surveyed said a queen should finish her commitment to one title before chasing after another crown. That's a pretty big percentage considering the number two option, which was being committed to more than one title is okay. That one only came in at 13.65%. So 67%, an overwhelming majority of pageant people feel crown chasing is wrong. So again, kind of surprised me because we see a lot of that lately in this industry, like a lot. And people don't usually tend to, I don't know. Let me just stop there. But I will say this did surprise me. This is a great statistic though, because this gives me hope that girls are understanding and parents are understanding the importance of teaching the commitment to one title, to representing one system at a time. I think that's such a valuable thing. I think it's a lost art in a lot of cases, and I get it. Girls have goals. They want to win pageants. They don't win this one, they want to go to the next one. But there is something to be said for that level of commitment of completing what you started and sticking to one thing until it's fulfilled, until it's completed. So made me really happy to see that 67% of you agreed with my stance on crown chasing. So now let's see that happen in real life. Fingers crossed. So our next topic is, how important is the location of a pageant? And this also made me really happy because here at UNM, it's always been the mantra is kind of like the venue has to be amazing. Like, we're not just going to settle for average. We're not just going to go to a random hotel. It's got to be a great resort. It's got to be an incredible experience from the moment they step foot into that property. So 59.62% of you agreed and said it should be fun and an exciting location. Number 2 was location doesn't matter. 26% of you said that. Still, over a majority say that the venue of the pageant, the location, is super important when it comes to selecting your pageant. So that makes me happy because we love going to exciting locations. We love our new venue in Hollywood, Florida, right on the beach. It's stunning. It's gorgeous. It's tropical. You feel like you're in pageant. You feel like you're in a pageant in paradise, which is one of our new hashtags for this year. So that was kind of fun to see that people felt that way. So yeah, I love that. Our last question for part 1 of Survey Says, Pageant Survey, is, what do you prefer, competing at a state pageant to win your way to nationals or going appointed? And I have to preface this one by saying I was really surprised by the answers, because what I've seen out in the field is that recently there's been a shift in girls really just wanting to get appointed to go to nationals. They don't want to have to spend the money on a state pageant. They don't want to have to go through all that and risk losing. They would rather go appointed. We've seen that as a trend pretty much for the last year and a half. But 83% of you, 83.78 to be precise, said that you would rather compete at a state pageant to win your way to nationals. So that was cool seeing that. Only 16.22% said that they would want an at-large title. So that was kind of interesting to see how you guys answered on those. I'd be interested to know. Drop a comment below if you agree with any of the answers that we have shared today. Do you agree with most of them? Are there any of them that stick out to you? Drop us a comment and let us know what your thoughts are. We would be curious to hear it. And that's it for the pageant survey. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.